Hi guys, happy Friday and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, brought to you by AMS Media Limited. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou. A little bit more of a chilled vibe on this edition of the podcast. I'm enjoying my beer, just had my dinner, sitting down and chilling out for a bit before I start work again. And if you are watching this evening and you're watching West Ham United versus Watford, do come over to the Hot Mic app where I'll be commentating alongside Lee Scott for Total Football Analysis. So do come and join us for that. You can sync the broadcast with your television set as well. So if you fancy it, come and join us by all means. But the reason we are here, the reason I am here right now is to talk about the FA Cup semi-final, which takes place tomorrow at Wembley. It's Arsenal versus Manchester City in our competition. I don't care what anybody says. The FA Cup is our competition. Arsenal have a real rich history in the competition. Arsene Wenger, in particular, had a great time in that competition. And in many ways, you could argue that it was those 3 FA Cup wins in 4 seasons that kept him at the Emirates Stadium for as long as he ended up staying. So, you know, it's a competition that I'm sure will be very dear to him. It's very dear to us as supporters. We've had some of our greatest days in that competition. And growing up, I always remember the buzz about FA Cup final day, you know, watching it from the morning. I was one of the fortunate enough ones to go to the old Wembley and see it. And, you know, it's a great competition. It's a historic competition. And perhaps more importantly, it offers Arsenal this time a route back into European football. Now, again, I've said it before on recent editions, a lot of people are not too fussed if Arsenal don't qualify for the Europa League, but the financial implications of us missing out on European football altogether can only be a hindrance to Mikel Arteta and the plans that he has for the summer in terms of transfers. So we're going to start off by talking about how I would line up tactically, how I would approach the game. And I think the key here is that you've got to find something in between the way we played against Liverpool and the way we played against Tottenham. If we try and control the possession and dominate the ball like we did at Spurs, unlike Jose Mourinho's Tottenham, Manchester City are not going to let us settle. They're not going to let us have the ball in and amongst the back three, knocking the ball around and sort of waiting for them to press. They will press. They will be aggressive. They will put us under pressure. They will cut out passing lanes, which will make it really, really difficult for us to progress the ball and move forward and create stuff of our own. But equally, if we sit as deep as we did against Liverpool, if we continuously sink onto the edge of our penalty area, then Manchester City, in my opinion, are far better equipped to break down that type of opposition than Liverpool are. Just because they've got the type of players that are just a little bit more, I would say, technically gifted, a little bit more crafty, a little bit more, they have a little bit more guile in the side, in my opinion. The likes of Bernardo Silva, David Silva, Raheem Sterling, Kevin De Bruyne in particular. These players are capable of splitting any defence open. And if you just back off them, they'll just put one in from 20, 30 yards as well. So they've got all kinds of capabilities, Manchester City. And for me, when they're at their best, they are better than Liverpool at their best. I honestly believe that. People would disagree because of the difference in the Premier League this season and the points gap between them, which I think is about 19 points at the moment. But I just think in terms of their maximum, particularly from an attacking standpoint, perhaps not that, well, certainly not defensively, but from an attacking standpoint, they are certainly still the team to fear, in my opinion. So, like I said, I think we've got to find somewhere in between. I think we've got to try and be solid and compact, but we've also got to look to progress the ball and cause danger of our own when we get the opportunity, because like I said, we all know that Manchester City have some defensive shortcomings as well. So it'd be interesting to see what Mikel Arteta does and how he approaches the game. You know, it's all well and good setting out in a certain way, but ultimately if your opponent imposes themselves on you, you could be forced to play in a way that wasn't necessarily the plan as well. So, there's so many things that that come into it, so many factors. A trip to Wembley without the fans is going to be weird. Every game's been weird so far, but particularly at Wembley, because Arsenal normally outnumber their opponent there. We always have a massive crowd there. At times it's felt like a home game in the past, but that's not going to be the case this time. It's an empty stadium, and it's just about the football and nothing else. So in terms of my tactics and sort of the way I'd approach the game, that's what I would do. I would look to strike that balance in between having possession, but also the way we were so defensively sound against Liverpool in terms of the left wing back, whoever it is, dropping in and making it a back five at times, and then stepping forward and making it a back four when we have the ball. So there's lots of nuances to what Mikel Arteta does with his team, and there were a few different ones actually that we noticed on was it Wednesday night against Liverpool. So it'll be interesting to see if he carries on with those things, if he takes them forward, and how he sets up against a team that he knows very, very well. And fingers crossed he would have learned something from that first encounter that we had, or under Mikel Arteta anyway, just a few weeks ago, where of course David Luiz gifted the game to Manchester City. Right, in terms of a starting lineup, the goalkeeper is a no-brainer. It's going to be Emi Martinez. I'd bring Hector Bellerin back in the side. I'd bring Shkodran Mustafi back in the side. David Luiz will play for me. And then the question mark is around the left centre-back. Do you play Kieran Tierney there and leave Bukayo Saka on the left? Do you bring Kolasinac back in? Me personally, I'd play Tierney just inside there, and I'd play Bukayo Saka as the left wing-back. That's what I would do. But if you're asking me what I think Mikel Arteta's going to do, I think there's a good chance that you may see Sead Kolasinac come back into the side. In terms of the middle of the park, for me, it would be Granit Xhaka and Dani Ceballos. I think they've struck up a really, really good understanding. Of course, Torreira came in the other day. The danger with Lucas Torreira is always that if he picks up a yellow card early doors, it's a problem. And Manchester City are exactly the type of team that you can see him having to make fouls against. And also, there'd be question marks around his fitness, given that the game against Liverpool was his first start. So the fact that Dani Ceballos didn't start that game, came on, played really, really well, only strengthens the case for Mikel Arteta, in my opinion, to continue with that midfield. Ahead of them, this is the tricky bit. For me, Lacazette will play through the middle. I think he's been better in recent weeks. I think since Nketiah got the knock, he's been a lot better. The red card. He's been a lot better, and he's been putting people under pressure, and you saw the benefits of him doing that against Liverpool for the second goal, where he was switched on, he was alert, he read Alisson's pass, he got there and he provided a wonderful assist. So Lacazette plays for me, Aubameyang plays for me as well. The question here is now, do you start Nicolas Pepe? Do you start Reiss Nelson? This is the trouble, isn't it? And I didn't think Reiss Nelson, up until he scored the other day, had much of an impact, or did anything at all, in fact. But I do think once he scored, he improved. I thought it was a solid effort from him in terms of closing down Virgil van Dijk, which led to the opener. He did really, really well there. He was alert, obviously showing some passion, some fight, some desire. So in that sense, it's hard to say that he did much wrong against Liverpool, but I think Nicolas Pepe will get the nod, if I'm honest. And I think that's what I would go with as well, to start with anyway. So that's my lineup. Martinez in goal. It would be Mustafi, Luiz and Tierney as the back three, with Bukayo Saka as a left wing back. It would be Bellerin at right wing back, Ceballos, Xhaka, and then it will be Pepe, Lacazette and Aubameyang. And you're probably wondering maybe why I've left out Rob Holding. I thought Rob Holding was okay the other night, but I did think he made a couple of mistakes. I do think that Mikel Arteta is obsessed with having a left-footed centre-back playing in that left-footed centre-back role, and that's why I can't see him playing in that position. And I just think the fact that Mustafi was left out the other night was with a view to him playing on Saturday. Whether Rob Holding did enough on Wednesday to prove to Mikel Arteta that actually he warrants a place in the side instead remains to be seen, and I'm not sure. But if it was me picking the team, that is what I would go with. Let me know your lineups and your predictions, of course, in the comments section below. Always happy to see them, and we'll be reading some of those out on the next show as well. Also, this reminds me, hit the like button if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button if you're new as well. Plenty more content coming your way. A couple of other little bits I wanted to touch on. The news that Gabby Martinelli is unlikely to play again this year. It's horrible news. It's devastating news. It's probably really tough to take for the young lad. But based on what we know about Gabriel Martinelli and what we've seen from him so far, he seems a very driven individual, a very passionate individual, very determined individual. And I don't doubt for a second that he will be able to return. Mentally getting an injury like that at such a young age is a problem. Of course, there's the physical aspects as well. How does that leave him sort of coming off the back of it? And we've seen players like Bellerin and Holding have similar injuries but struggle to come back, quickly. And when they did come back, they looked way off the pace. I think Martinelli is a little bit different in that he's probably got that, I don't mean this sort of disrespectfully, but I feel like he's got that South American tenacity that maybe Bellerin or Holding doesn't necessarily have. So I expect him to come back stronger, to learn from it, to develop. And at the moment, it's just all about him getting fit as soon as possible. But obviously as well, making sure he looks after himself and he does the rehabilitation in the way it should be done and the right way. Other news is Konstantinos Mavropanos will join VfB Stuttgart for next season in the Bundesliga. Gives him an opportunity to play a lot more football in the German top flight, which is great. Impressed at Nuremberg, but of course that was the Bundesliga too, so it will be interesting to see how he fares in the top flight in Germany, which is a far better standard in terms of the competition, and it'll give Arsenal a chance to watch how he develops without really losing out. But also it's smart business. We've seen Reece Nelson go to Germany and sort of develop there as well. We know that the coaching is good there in general, the tactical sort of understanding of the game in the Bundesliga. Something I've realised doing a lot of work on it recently is that it's probably slightly a level above. Maybe not in terms of quality, but in terms of the tactical sort of, what's the word? I had a word on the tip of my tongue and it's gone. I guess the education that players get there, I feel, is better. So I think it's a good stepping stone for him, and fingers crossed we'll see him develop and he can come back to Arsenal one day and fill in as a centre-back and do a very, very good job. Fingers crossed. The other thing I wanted to touch on was the KSE debt. There was a KSE debt restructure, I should say. There was a lot of talk about that last week, about how that's going to work. I've actually been talking to some people and doing a lot more research into it and understand that a little bit better now, which I'll provide you guys with some more information. But I'm going to save that for tomorrow because this is the Manchester City preview. So stay tuned for that if you're interested as well. But that would be my lineup as I've given it to you. Martinez, Mustafi, Luiz, Tierney, Saka, Bellerin, Xhaka, Ceballos, Aubameyang, Lacazette and Pepe. That is my Arsenal team to face Manchester City. I'm going to go for a draw in normal time, but I think Manchester City will just edge it because I think the pressure will end up wearing us down eventually. But I'm confident that Arsenal can give them a game. It's a one-off game at Wembley. Why not? This is our competition. It's our cup. Let's get out there and give a good account of ourselves and continue to progress under Mikel Arteta. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Apologies for the brief nature of this preview. Hope you all enjoy it. And like I said, if you fancy catching us on commentary for West Ham versus Watford, come join us. Until next time, take care. Cheers.